guys, welcome to the Missing Piece podcast. I'm sitting here with Dr. Graebe, who is also my dad. My name is Allie Wood. I will be hosting today. Today we're going to be talking about something that is probably near and dear to a lot of your all's hearts. Today's episode is titled, Your Child's Doctor Didn't Miss It. The system was just never built to find it. And so I know a lot of our parents have probably been here where you've tried all of the tutoring or you've gone and seen the optometrist and been told their eyes are fine. You may have worked with OT, PT, speech therapy for years or tried every reading program that's out there, and your child is still struggling despite all of the effort. So if that's you today, I definitely want you to stick with me. We're going to talk about not anything that anyone in particular missed, but just something that the system was never designed to look for in the first place. And so for a lot of families, this is kind of that piece that connects everything else that they've already been working on for years. And also, I did want to add a special note. Stick around for the end of the podcast because we do have a special opportunity for our kiddos that are listening this summer. So, Dr. Graebe, I will kind of let you kick it off here. So I know we hear from families all the time who come into us almost as a last resort. We're kind of the last thing that they are trying to help get their kid to reach their full potential. I know they feel like they've done everything right. They've followed every doctor's recommendation. So talk to me about what that typically looks like when a family walks in to see you.
Well, thanks. And first of all, I'll kind of give you a case I just saw 2 days ago. The mom would come in, they live about 2 hours away. Mom's a teacher. She knew something wasn't right. Her daughter has been in tutoring for years, and they're just struggling to stay caught up. She was doing fine early grades, but then she started struggling. And so they're doing tutoring. She's been in OT since she's been about 3 years old, and she's around 9 now. And mom just said, I know there's something there. And then it was the OT, and then also one of the reading specialists said, I think you should go to Versailles and see this dude over there. And so that would be me. And so anyway, she came in, and that's what I tell parents all the time. Take everything with a grain of salt. And any specialist, any expert tells you something, take it with a grain of salt, including anything I would tell patients. Take it with a grain of salt and just trust your gut. Is that really seem right for you or not? But the problem is, myself included, we're trained in school to look for these structural problems. We look and say, your eye tissues are healthy, everything's fine. Now, do you need glasses to get a clear image? But that's not how we use our eyes in the real world. We have to move, point, track, and there's at least 17 different visual skills, and they're not checked on eye exams. And so that's what we do. We'll look at those functional vision problems. I don't even do traditional eye care tests anymore. I haven't for years. And so we'll do things like, well, let's actually have them read a paragraph and let's monitor how their eyes are moving. Let's see how well they can move their eyes in all different directions. Let's see how well they judge space and distance. Let's see how quickly they can process things. Let's check their balance. Let's check, their ability to understand what it is they're seeing. So kind of to me, vision isn't just get a clear image, which is what we're taught. Are your eye structures healthy? And get a clear image. And this goes beyond eye care too. This is the same with general health care. Let's do a scan. If everything's fine structurally, then you're okay. But if that's the case, everybody with good structure could be a Michael Jordan, and that's there's other things beyond just having the structure. So to me, vision's 4 parts. You have to get a clear image, then your brain has to process what you're seeing, and there's ambient and there's focal processing, and we're the only office in Kentucky that's testing and treating ambient vision problems. So get a clear image, process. You have to integrate with your other senses, then you act. And when all 4 of those are working, you don't have performance problems. But, 70% of what the brain's processing at any given time is through the visual system. School's more like 85%. So a lot of times these kids can find workarounds where they can do well in the early grades, but the bulk of our practice and what got me into this field, and I'll sort of talk about how I got there later in the podcast probably, but basically what got me into this field, I'd have these bright kids, couldn't show the rest of the world how bright they are. And I said, well, let's take a look deeper. And that's when I kind of found it. I ran into a doctor who he explained things in a way I go, that makes sense. And so, since then, it's all been, all these other people have appeared since then, so we just grown and grown and grown and grown from those different things. So that's kind of how we got started into this.
So, that's why I know a lot of families, whenever they show up, they feel like I just want to address something, because a lot of families do feel like that they've probably failed their kid, or that they must have missed something. But what you're saying is that just there's not a whole lot of training on how to actually look at the function of something. We do really well as a society to look at the structure of things and make sure that that's working well, but there's like this whole slew of other issues that could come from just missing that functional piece, and it's hard to look for. Like, it requires some extra training and schooling and all
Absolutely. It's kind of like no different than like physical therapy or occupational therapy. With a physical therapist, you can look and say, hey, all the structures are fine, but then this guy or girl has this really unusual gait when they walk. They're bent over, they're stooped, and so you have to work on getting their posture proper, engaging the muscles in the right thing so they can be smooth and steady walkers with good balance. Well, that's kind of similar to what we do. But with these skills, nobody's born knowing how to use your arms, your legs, your hands, or your eyes. You have to learn how to do that. Right. And so what happens, we don't all learn the ideal way to do that. And so what happens is we test and say, did you learn the superhighway method, or did you learn the country road method? And for these young kids early on, they can learn well enough to get by in the early years, but then they struggle once they have to start reading books, catching balls, driving cars. And kind of a simple analogy I give a lot of times is, like, as cars going down the road, you'll have to be shifting gears, to go to higher speeds, higher speeds, higher speeds. And some people may learn how to do the low gears, but they can't get to the higher gears. So they're fine when they're doing, kindergarten, first grade. Right. But then they go from learning to read to reading to learn. And then they have these struggles. And that's basically where the majority of patients, that's what we see around that third, fourth grade. It's like, what's going on? And the kids often get labeled as, one, you're not putting in the effort, for one thing. Secondary, they may get a diagnosis of, okay, you're dyslexic, you're ADHD, you're sensory processing disorder, all those different things. And if we do our testing and say, your skills aren't where they need to be, it's like we discovered a kid's running in heavy shoes. And what we do, we have programs that can teach them how to get those skills, and it creates these permanent pathways in the brain. So once they get these skills, they'll be there and should be there for life. And when the teacher's trying to teach a traditional classroom, a teacher teaching a child, it's 85% roughly of what they're going to be teaching is through the visual system. Right. And if those visual skills aren't there to go from board to desk, things like that, they're going to struggle. And they can maybe find workarounds, just like that person without the high gear can say, oh, I'll take these back roads, I'll do this, but it's going to take longer. And that's really what we want to do.
You're going to use more brain dimes to get there, probably.
Yeah, absolutely. I always use that. I think that's a great analogy to understand. Is what we're talking about is everybody's brain has limited resources. So you have $1 worth of dimes to spend, and your brain is going, where and how do I spend my 10 dimes? And what Allie's talking about there is just like, I've had to use all my dimes just to figure out how to get here. Then you let's say you're using all your dimes just to get your eyes across the page. Right. Then your brain is going, but I have no clue what I just read. And so they can read the words, you hear them reading the words, and you go, I don't understand why they don't get it. Or it's also why they can do great on the paragraph at the top of the page, but then by that same word or saying it at the bottom, they go, I'm done.
Well, I hear a lot from parents, too, that, like, it's almost like a night and day difference when they read to their child versus when their child is tasked with reading itself, and how their comprehension varies greatly. And it's like they understand things just fine whenever they hear it, but when they're tasked to gather it visually, that's where everything kind of goes downhill. Yeah. And that's,
because even when we're reading to ourselves, we hear our voice in our head saying that. So to read, you have to turn both eyes inward. You have to use a lens in your eye to focus. As you keep both eyes inward, the part of your eye that sees 20/20, the detail, is the macula. It's about the size of a ballpoint pen opening. So you're having to keep both eyes turned inward at a ballpoint pen opening, like just think of like a laser pointer. You're having to keep two laser pointers pointed simultaneously on each of these letters. Then you have to phonetically decode the words. you break down the words as you're moving across the page, then you say the words in your head auditorily, then you have to turn it into an image or a picture. Well, when you sit here and read to a child, you're just bypassing all the eye tracking, pointing, and you're going straight to auditory processing. And so that's kind of there. It's like, okay, cool. Kid who's in that situation, without even testing, I mean, we test to confirm, but I know what I'm going to see. You know, 99.9% of the time, it's like, yeah, your eye tracking, your eyes aren't working as a team, your visual system's getting in the way of your learning instead of helping your learning.
Right. And that's why I think, like, I want a lot of parents or people that, like, have very good functioning, like, visual skills to understand where it's like, I almost think it's so, having efficient visual skills is so essential to everything that we do. It lays the foundation. And I like to compare it to, like, nobody thinks about, like, when they're going to take their next breath. Like, that's like, it's just so automatic that, you know, I think a lot of times we take it for granted and we don't realize that the person sitting next to me is struggling. They have to think about everything that they gather visually. They have to work for it.
No brain dimes versus lots of brain dimes.
Correct. And so that's why I know, like, we see a lot of times we'll see kids that have done years of tutoring or PT or OT or speech, and it provides great value. But I hear a lot of times it's like, we've seen very minimal progress or almost no progress. But then once they actually add the visual piece into things, all their hard work just kind of clicks and connects, and everything is just catalysts its way.
Absolutely. As you know firsthand, I like a lot of analogies. So I think it's easier to remember things with analogies. And I use the analogy of, if, let's say, dyslexia, let's say sensory processing disorder, let's say they're running conditions. And we do our test and we realize you're running in heavy shoes. And so we know we can make those skills better, which is the equivalent of making your shoes lighter. So we don't want to say you're a dyslexic runner. I want to say, let me make your shoes lighter first, then let's see if you still have those reading problems. Whereas what you mentioned about tutoring, and I'm a fan of tutoring because you have to keep kids caught up. So it's a multidisciplinary or interdisciplinary, takes all, people from all fields. But what's going to happen a lot in the schools is they're going to say, you're running this race, but you're falling behind. So what we want you to do is we're going to create we're going to get a golf cart for you. And then they put you in the golf cart and they get you caught up and they push you back out. But if you don't have those skills, you're going to fall behind again. And then they go, okay, back in the golf cart. And they'll do that so many times. And then eventually they go, tell you what, you just run half a lap. The rest of the class is going to run the full lap. And then you get out of school, unfortunately, and your employer is not going to do that for you. So it limits what your options are. You know, you don't want anything that involves a lot of reading, a lot of things. Like if you want to be a teacher, if you want to be a lawyer, if you want to be a doctor, well, that you have to go to college for those kind of things. And college is 5 times more reading than high school. And so if you're not a good reader, you'll instantly just shut those doors automatically. And that's really what we want to do, is keep all these doors, all these pathways open for kids so they can do what they want to do. And it's just, you know, once they have the confidence to try things, I feel comfortable reading. Well, then they're going to read more, and then they're going to get confidence at reading. But without confidence, you can't have competence. And the only way you're going to get confidence, you have to have the skills to do it, because nobody wants to go do something that, this is just not fun. If I went and tried to play basketball against UK basketball player, every shot is blocked. They're stealing my ball. I go, I don't want to go play basketball. I don't want to play basketball with them. It's just no fun. I don't have a chance, you know, and that's kind of where these kids are.
That's what I tell my kid all the time. It's like, you have to practice if you want to be good at something, and suddenly the game becomes a whole lot more fun whenever you're exceeding at it or excelling at that thing.
One of my favorite quotes of Vince Lombardi is, the only place success comes before work is in the dictionary. So you have to put the work in, but you also have to work at the right level. If we put somebody, we don't want to leave our patients in a puddle on the floor where they do these activities and go, oh, that was too much. And that's what's happening in school. These activities are way above the level that they're able to attain. So for them, it's just total frustration. So then they try, and then they're trying it really hard. And then also everybody goes, try harder, work harder. And then, because they've been to the eye doctor, they've said everything's fine, they've been to the tutor, they've been to their physician, they've been to this, and everything has checked out. Because they're these healthy, vibrant, they can see, they can do this, they just can't understand, or maybe they can't track, whatever.
But it's almost a relief, I feel like, for our parents. And if I were a parent, I would think it would be a relief as well. Like if I had a child that was struggling in that way, where it's just like, oh, thank goodness somebody found something wrong. Like I know a lot of parents will say that they feel very validated
Right.
in what we have found because they're like, this is what I've been seeing in my kid, and no one else has been able to identify or put a name to some of those things.
No, exactly. And that's why
So-
we do certain tests, as you know, that nobody else in Kentucky is doing. So
Right.
we're going to pick up things that aren't picked up
Right.
anywhere else. And you're exactly right. The two kind of things I hear regularly is like, I knew there was something there, and like you said, validation is a good word to use. I feel validated. I was right. I'm seeing these things that are there. And then the second part is what I love seeing this with that group of patients we're talking about, the kids with reading and learning, and then also with the brain injury population. They have hope.
Yeah.
Nobody has given them hope, and they go, sorry, you're just not good at this. Here's your label. Go sit in the corner, and that's all we expect from you. And that just breaks my heart, all
Yeah.
this unused potential that's out there. And so many people, they've been taught not to believe in themselves.
Right.
And when we see these problems, that's one thing that I never underestimate, that just getting patients where they can say, I'm able to do this. And we're giving them success every week. They go, I couldn't do this last week, but now I'm doing it.
Yeah.
Then we go to the next level. I couldn't do that last week, but now I'm doing it.
And not only does that happen, speaking about like the whole integrated approach, like that's not just like happening at our clinic. Like a lot of times once the visual piece clicks, it's like they start taking off in some of these other therapies.
Absolutely. Vision's so pervasive in everything. It was at an actual occupational therapy seminar that I go to a lot of the different workshops, as you know, but it's just one of the OTs from the podium made a statement. I don't know why it hit me so hard, like, wow, that's true. But she said the fastest way to make a change in someone's behavior and performance is through the visual system. And it's not, I always stress, we're not magic, or there's nothing special about us here. I always say the whole key, what we do, it's the patient's brain is what it's all about. We just coach and facilitate. But we're fortunate enough to be working in the dominant system in human performance by far.
Like it all starts
yeah,
there.
yes, absolutely.
Yeah. And fun fact, I don't know if everybody else knows this,
We
but
like
the
fun
eyes,
facts.
you know this, but the eyes are actually a part of the brain.
Right.
Essentially, they're just an extension of our brain. They're the only part that's actually visible.
Yeah.
And if you want to try a fun exercise, you can put your hands on the back of your neck and move your eyes, and you'll be able to feel that shift. What is the optic nerve back there?
No, what
is it?
What
If
happens?
there's a shift.
It's a vestibulocular reflex.
Yeah.
It's just stabilizing your head.
Yeah.
Because basically your body supports your head supports your eyes, and your eyes tell you about the world out there. It's your vision is your way of being able to touch and interact with the world that's outside of your reach. You know, a young child, it starts off, everything's, taste and smell. Then it goes where, okay, developmentally, it goes to touch and feel. And and about age 3, vision should start becoming your dominant sense. And when you have those 5 and 6-year-olds are just getting into everything, they touch. They haven't developed, it's more or less a developmental delay in the visual system.
Right.
They haven't learned how to let that take place. But it is, you can't make an eye movement without sending a message to your body. You can't make a body movement without sending a message to the visual system. And so they're
That's where I was going with that.
perfectly intertwined.
Yeah.
and that's where we have, other things, even just like with the balance. We can have where you stand on a board, and it can measure body sway within centimeters, and we can say, is any instability from a proprioception? Is it from a vestibular problem, or is it from a visual problem? And that's where firsthand, we want to look at all systems, because when I started this, I mentioned earlier about, how I've changed my ways. My first 6 years of practice, I said vision therapy is voodoo, quackery. Real doctors don't do that. We do glaucomas, cataracts, things like that.
Yeah.
Well, then I went to a conference in 1990 and had a Dr. Gibson explain things in a way I go, that totally makes sense. And then fortunately, he kind of held my hand. I went up and visited him for 2 weeks and trained under him. Then he held my hand for 2 years afterwards. And then, like I said, all these other people showed up along the way. But when I first got started, it was really just, okay, let's get the eyes pointing and working together. And that was great and helped so many patients. but there was still like there's something missing, and that's when some of these other people and also just new things came out from the neuroscience scenario, and you realize, oh, it's you have to work on the whole body as a whole, and that's what we do. I mean, we look for primitive reflexes, and we have programs for that. We look for our focal and ambient vision working together. We work how are all the sensory inputs integrating and agreeing, just like with motion sickness.
Yeah.
It's when your vestibular, your vision, and proprioception, they don't match up. And then what happens when your brain gets that input, says, wait, my vestibular system says we're bouncing all over the place, so I'm sitting in the back seat of the car, but the seat in front of you is moving with you.
Yeah.
And it says, no, we're not moving at all. And so your vision's not matching your vestibular, and your brain gets a signal. These two sensory don't match up. So we must have a neurotoxic substance in our body, and that's when we want to purge, and that's why we get nauseated and sick with motion sickness. So, and we have programs for those things. There's just so many different things.
We can help with that too.
Absolutely, there's so many things we can do, but
so many things we can help with that are not like do not feel directly related to vision, but it's truly all connected. And I think it's important to note that you have been doing this for a long time. It took you a long time to get to where you are, like in the mindset that you're in.
A little dense on that. It took me out. I think what I should have with that too.
Yeah,
because I had to change my paradigm.
Yeah, no, I think it's funny because like a lot of times it's the skeptics that are actually the ones that go the hardest. Once they actually get their minds changed, like the Dr. Curtis Syntonics, he said he was the biggest skeptic of light therapy Syntonics, and now he's created this whole program centered around
it's like I've always said, it's like the hardest sell is yourself. You know, selling yourself first, but once you do. I mean, when I first started doing this, I went up and trained with him for 2 weeks. Like I said, I came back. I still thought, what am I doing? Why am I doing this? And, you know, I remember the first parent I was kind of talking to about maybe doing this. And I kind of said, look, I'm going to start doing vision therapy, but I don't think it's going to work for your child. You may want to try it, but I just don't think it's going to work. But they were struggling so much. They said, no, we want to try it.
That just shows you how desperate, I mean, some of these parents are just looking for answers or anything to help their kid. Yeah. But I think it's really important for people to hear that you were so skeptical to begin with, because I think that that's, you know, back to this whole reason is to like just this healthcare system as a whole was just never really designed to find these things, like because you've been in it for 45 years or something like that. And it took you a little while to get there too. Like, so you understand where other providers or practitioners might be coming from, and like reasons as to why some of these functional issues may not be found. Like there could be skepticism, the standard eye exam, if we're getting more into the like specifics like of optometry, like they don't include things like this to look for the functional skills. And also just like a lot of people just don't know to look further even. Right. So it's just not in the curriculum for a lot of schooling that this is even an option.
Well, it is. And here's the big dilemma now. All the neuroscience, all the literature, and it's been out there now for decades, supports what we're doing. But the schools are having a struggle now because they go, we need to get more of this into the optometry schools, for instance. But the problem is tuition's so expensive, and they would have to add another year to get this on. And so nobody wants, and not everybody wants to do what we're doing. Yeah. Not every optometrist wants to do this. So it's just, it's unfair to make them pay another year's tuition for that.
And so like optometrists would essentially have to go out of their way to learn about the whole functional side of optometry. Right. Which just adds another layer of like, just as to why it's so hard to get the ball rolling.
Yeah. The good news, there's more options and opportunities for people to do that.
Definitely.
But they won't do that. But it is kind of like, you know, going back to my start, I only would do 3 kids the first go around. I put them through I didn't tell anybody else. I got 3 kids. We got success. One of those kids went from, he was being held back in school, and he was tall for his age. And then they were saying, I think you need to hold him back another year. So he was already tall for his grade. Yeah. And then this was in May of 1990, you know, so it's been a while, but it's just an instance of, his parents go, should I hold him back again? And go, I was real green at this, and I didn't know what to tell him. I don't know, you know, that too. So they moved him on forward, and he ended up winning the exemplary student for his school that year. He went from horribly to being an A student with that. Yeah. And so I did these 3 kids, and they all were successful. I was still skeptical. I go, maybe I was just lucky. That's only 3 kids. So I did 3 more kids without telling the world that I was doing vision therapy, because I didn't want to be that weirdo doing
literally out
therapy.
of a closet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so then I did, because we packed all our vision therapy stuff in the closet, what she's talking about. Then every day at 5, I'd pull the stuff out of the closet. We'd do 3 hours of therapy and then put it back in the closet.
No
Next day, do
excuses.
general optometry.
Yeah.
And so I did 3 kids. They did great. I
Yeah.
did 3 more kids. They did great. I still didn't believe. And I did 3 more kids, and they all did great. And I go, maybe I should consider this. So far, I'm 9 of 9 on this. And I said, and it really isn't, I'm not 9 of 9. It's this, getting this information. The brain is 9 of 9.
The brain is getting what it finally needs
Absolutely.
to make these things permanent and automatic.
I can't stress enough. We're coaches and facilitators. I always use the analogy. They're trying to learn these skills, but it's like trying to learn keyboard with the keyboard turned off. We effectively just turned the keyboard on. And I always tell parents, I'm 99% certain a child coming out from the hospital, an infant, is going to learn to walk and talk because their brain's going to find that information helpful. I need to learn how to do that. Same principle. Once we give them these opportunities, they're going to sit here and go, hey, I'm 99% certain if you follow the process and do the work, those visual skills become ingrained. And just like when you learn to ride a bike, walk, talk, whatever, once those pathways are there, they're there. And that's the good news, too, is we really get to the root cause of the problem, create new pathways in the brain with these skills they need, and then you have those skills the rest of your life, short of having some sort of traumatic brain injury, things like this. So over 90% of our patients, once they're, let's say, fixed or better, whatever term you want to use, once those skills are where they need to be, they never need to come back again, which is what I love about that. And we always joke that it's the world's worst business model because we really don't want repeat business. We want patients to come in, get this done, and boom, then they go.
We're truly there, I feel like, to help the patients and to just essentially like free them from whatever's holding them back.
Absolutely.
And I think that that's what patients feel when they walk in the door to our clinic.
No, that's what I said. I was at a lecture years ago, psychiatrist up in, he's from Evanston, Illinois at Northwestern University. He asked a bunch of us vision therapy doctors, explain what you do in a sentence, and none of us could do it. It's just, it doesn't have an elevator talk. But, it's kind of funny. He said, what you are is liberators. He goes, we free people from these, they're bound up or they're imprisoned by, they don't have the skills, can't do this. And, I thought, of course, my mind, I kind of thought, the next dinner party I'm at or whatever, I'm going to say, what do you do, Rick? I go, I'm a liberator. And it's like, I'll probably walk the other way. But it is an instance, come to find out, he had struggled in school himself and did vision therapy, but he said as a psychiatrist he's working with people who have loss all day long, and he said that's kind of what we're doing, freeing these people from being trapped in this, and they know they should be able to do this, but eventually they just say, no, this is who I am. I'm just not good at sports. I'm just not a good reader.
With OT and physical therapy, it's like there's kind of two different segments where it's either habilitative or rehabilitative. So it's like we're either training them for the first time or we're helping them get something back that they've lost. Right. So either way, like they're getting things that they have either never had or that they've had and they've lost.
Right.
But no, and I know similar to like OTs, I feel like OTs and PTs are so great at finding things. I know a lot of providers don't know about us, and that's why a lot of times these kids will go years in therapy, and they're making progress, but just they don't quite understand why they're not having these breakthroughs. But the providers that do know about us, they refer to us, and we have, I feel like, such a nice relationship where we can really have this full like integrative care model for the patients. And we do the same thing. Like once we understand like, oh, there's a vestibular specialist in the area, and like there are things with this patient that we can't quite touch with just the visual side of things, or like cranial, like facial stuff like that. Like we have our little network, which we're always looking to grow, and our patients are so much better off for it.
What is it's always just the typical synergistic scenario. It's like 1 and 1 is 6. So sometimes, and there's no way one person can have all the answers. I'm kind of blown away. You won't find a bigger fan of OT or PT than me, but people have been doing OT PT for years. You get the vision component. I know you've seen it, but suddenly, boom, the OT PT just accelerates. Yeah. But I think it really is everybody working together toward the same goal. At the end of the day, everybody from the school system to the doctors, to the parents, to the kid. We all want the same thing. We want Johnny, Susie, whoever, we want them to be successful and reach their potential. That's our goal,
Yeah.
And so that's what our therapy is geared toward that. And that's why we always do things one-on-one, so we can know, well, what specifically are your goals? What specifically, where are you having problems? And we know we have to get those skills ingrained, whether autopilot, muscle memory, whatever term you want to use. But then once those skills are there, some people are more interested in how it affects their sports performance. Others are more interested in how it affects their reading performance. So we put more of those spins for those patients, so we gear
Right.
it toward them. And sometimes we need to bring in outside people too, because I think that's, it's just the team approach is really what we're looking for.
Yeah, right. No, and I know, like, I do want to emphasize, like, we're not there to replace anyone, even optometrists. Like,
Absolutely.
I feel like there is some hesitancy there when it comes to sending patients our way. But, like, we have no optical. We don't do any of those, like, general eye health checks
Right.
that they do. And so, like, I know they're probably seeing a lot of, like, eye turns and, like, very poor acuities or
Right.
just kids that are falling behind in school.
Well,
So I feel like a lot of those are some
yeah,
flags where we could work together.
and you're right. I mean, from a standpoint, and that's one of the hardest groups to understand what we do, because I've had that training, and I know it's about, can you see things clearly and are your
Yeah.
eyes healthy? That's really important to do that.
Yeah.
But the problem is too is we're taught, vision therapy is for eye turns or for focusing problems or amblyopia, what often called lazy
Yeah.
eye, whatever. But the big thing, going back to brain dimes, so many patients can come in and do their eye exam, and they can spend all their brain dimes and go, I can do your test. I can get a good score on what you're doing. I just can't do it all day long. So at 3 in the afternoon, they're done. They're wiped out. So many people slip through the cracks on the traditional eye care. And we look for not just a quantity, not, can you do it, but we also look at the quality. How long can you do it?
Yeah.
How many brain dimes is it taking to do
Yeah.
it? And then if we see there's problems in that, we can improve endurance and then also automaticity. So it's once you have that, endurance and automaticity, then you can sit here and say, good, now I can apply it to hitting baseballs, riding bikes, reading books, whatever it may be that you're having deficits in. And that's really, any therapy program should have 3 components, and unfortunately many only have 2. The first component is you should say what really clicks for this patient. Middle component is you should say, hey, we're doing some things here, and your numbers, your scores are getting better.
Yeah.
And the final third should be, hey, you're creating pathways in your brain that brings the automaticity to that. And so if you don't do that third pathway, you have to keep coming back into therapy for different things with that too, as far as that goes.
Right. Right. And so I know there are like so many reasons as to like, well, one, it took you so long to get here. And there are so many reasons why other people, like they might be providers or they may be patients or parents that have been to other providers and are like, why has nobody been able to help me the way that I want to be helped? Like it could be skepticism, or it could be the fact that they just don't know that this is an option.
Yeah.
It could just be their clinical training, like didn't even touch on this, just like how we are taught to look at structure in the medical world.
right.
And like, I just want to like let people know, like, part of the reason we're doing this podcast is like to hopefully educate and bring awareness that this is an option. And like, we understand the skepticism and the fact that we might be starting at ground zero, but like, we are happy to like go answer questions and go talk to you and, things like that. I know there was one mom specifically similar to your story, but this was even years ago, where she took her daughter to an optometrist and because she just felt like something was off with her vision because she was struggling in school. She was really struggling primarily with reading. And the optometrist, like, I think this girl, the mom knew about us, and she was like, I'm thinking about like therapy for my daughter. Like, do you see anything here that indicates that? And I think the optometrist that she saw said, nope, you're good. But then mom just still like just felt like, I just feel like I should at least try. And that's the beauty of like not needing a referral to come see us, because she called us and we did our functional vision testing and whatnot. And it revealed that she had quite a bit of functional visual deficits that just do not come up on an eye exam to no fault of any optometrist. That's just how it's designed. They can't look for it. They don't look for it.
Well, that brings up, you have a lot of things going through. One is just like we said earlier, parents, trust your gut.
Yeah.
You are your child's advocate.
I
You
wanted to
have to be the one
emphasize that.
speak up
Yeah.
for them. And two, it's as far as the other healthcare practitioner of any type, it's the old cliche: if all I have a hammer is I'm looking for nails.
Yeah.
And it's a two-way street
Right.
on this regard. A general practitioner, a general optometrist would be able to pick up glaucoma better than I do because I haven't done that for years.
Correct.
So I'm not an expert in glaucoma or things. So I send patients out if I think, hey, that's why I think general eye exams are still critically important for a
yeah.
lot of reasons.
Absolutely.
So I think everybody should still have a yearly exam for a lot of different reasons, but also don't go in thinking you've had your whole visual system checked. You've had your eye health evaluated, and you've had can you see clearly.
I think you brought up a really good point the other day when we were talking about just the dentistry industry.
Wait, say that again. I brought up a really good point.
You're just going to play that on repeat.
Yeah.
No, it's just the whole dentistry industry. I think everybody's very familiar and aware. Like, you go see the dentist for a cleaning every 6 months, and they make sure everything is healthy. But they cannot put braces on your teeth to actually change how your teeth are formed in your mouth. It's the same kind of concept where it's like both are equally important. And to no fault of like any general optometrist or anyone that does any generalized care, like that's absolutely a necessity. But just some people need a little bit more. And so, and it's just like, if you don't know that it's even something that needs to be looked for, then that can leave the patients feeling stuck.
Well, that's where I've been there because I said, my first 6 years of practice, I said vision therapy wasn't even on the table as an option. And so I look at all the patients I saw in that time period. I go, how many patients did I miss because I wasn't looking for that?
Yeah, and then you just think like how many lives could have been changed potentially by this knowledge.
No, and that's why our big push, like you said, is just educate people. And I go, we want everybody to know, here's an option for you. And if it's your thing, great. If it's not your thing, great.
Right.
I'm fine either way. With that too. It's just an instance of, but it just frustrates me. I mean, every week I have at least one or two patients come in and go, I wish we would have known about this years ago. Or like my mom yesterday, just 2 days ago again, she said, oh, I have the same thing myself. I wish I would have known about this when I was a child.
A lot of parents will say, oh, I've been there. Like, and I just wish that I got help when I was this young.
And therapy itself has been around since the 1950s. So it's not like, oh, this just came out, but it's all the new brain research and things like this. It's just amazing all the research that's out there to support what we're
research is
doing.
there. The outcomes are there. It's just, the word hasn't necessarily spread the way that it should yet. So that's a big part of why we're trying to do
And that's the
this
thing we've
podcast.
done. One of the things that I know we've done on the new website, which we just upgraded last week, but we have a whole page that has, I don't know, hundreds of links to research.
Yeah.
For those people who are those research oriented, I want to see this. All these are peer-reviewed studies that are showing it's like, hey, this works pretty well. And so there's, it's probably the best way to handle these kind of things. And so we can go on and on about that, but that's just, you can go for those who want I want the data, that's there. We also have the testimonials as well. So those people are like, I just want to know how somebody's...
I'm a success story person.
Yeah, and that's what it says. So different people like different
hear
ones.
another mom say that it worked for her family, and I'm like, well, that's enough for me.
I
don't need to read all the research, but there are people out there that want all the research. So we did just develop the website page for that. It's pretty extensive.
When I kind of said this, like you said, I couldn't have been doing this for 40 years if it wasn't working.
Yeah, I tell people that all the time.
Everybody would have shut me down long ago with that
absolutely.
too. And we've just been word of mouth up until about a year ago, and that's we've been very busy with that too. So it's just once anybody, I was that person who was saying vision therapy, I don't believe in vision therapy. I have in 40 plus years, I've never seen or heard a single person say anything negative about vision therapy if they've been a patient or a practitioner. It's always someone from the outside looking in. And to be blunt, like myself, I didn't fully understand it, and they don't understand what we're really doing. But what we're doing is just the same thing that we do normal development. How do we learn to walk, talk, do those different things? We just go through these 4 stages of learning.
That have been widely accepted at this point, like OT and PT. I'd tell patients a lot of times, we are just introducing the brain to a set of skills over and over and over again until it says, we're going to do this an awful
Right.
lot. Why don't we just create a pathway for it?
Right.
That's essentially what we're doing here, just with visual skills instead of like what maybe OT or PT would be working on.
Yeah, that's Hebb's law. Nerves that fire
correct.
together, wire together. that kind of
Right.
thing. And I always just say, in a nutshell, we just create an environment where the brain gets a meaningful experience. It goes, oh, I get it now. Then you repeat it. And when you repeat it, if your brain repetitively, it's like, you're doing this too much. I'm going to have to create a pathway so I don't have to keep spinning brain dumps.
Right.
That's how we learn to do anything well.
Right. And my thing too, to parents or even to practitioners that are listening and they're thinking like, oh, like I have a couple people that I might want to like get checked out. We've got like on our new website, it's nvpinstitute.com. We can also put it like in the little caption as well. We have like a kids vision quiz. So that will let you know within a matter of like 5 minutes or less what their symptoms look like and if it may indicate that there's a vision dysfunction there. So that's what I would suggest. That could be the next step for a lot of parents that are listening. It's completely free and you get answers within minutes, and that will help you determine if it's even worth
I
scheduling
find
a
too,
visit.
that's very, very accurate
Yeah.
in identifying who can
like
benefit from what we
scary.
do. And then, it'll be so precise. And then you get a number score. And like if you get 15 and up, maybe you're okay. Over 21, it's like, yeah, you probably benefit. Well, many of the patients I see get scores like 68, 85.
Yeah.
And it's like those I go, I technically don't even have to do the testing to know you're going to benefit from this. But we do the testing because everything we do is data driven. Everything we do has science behind it. We're not making stuff up on our own and just coming up randomly, just, anecdotal stuff. Everything has research behind it. Everything's data driven. And that's why when we look at the data and the standardized scores, in less than 30 weeks, our average patient will show over a 3.5-year jump on skill levels. And as I said before, it basically just sets the pathways in the brain. Then they can use those skills and just continue to use those really, truly the rest of their life. I just think that's the coolest thing. 70% of what you'll process the rest of your life is now more efficient. And I think that's so great.
But yeah, no, and I know we said at the very beginning that we had this special opportunity for families who've got school-age kids coming up. So if you stuck around, thank you. If you just fast forwarded here, that's fine too. You can still come. But we're basically having a one-time event this summer on Saturday, June 13th at our clinic, where we're going to offer free screenings to students ages like say 16 to 18. They probably should be able to have like started reading at this point. I would say like first grade through 12th. We're going to limit it to somewhere between 15 and 20 people maybe. But no, the screenings will be completely free for these school-age kids on June 13th at our clinic. We're going to start at 9 o'clock in the morning, and it's kind of first come, first serve. So whoever wants to show up, the parents can meet with Dr. Graebe and learn more about what we do, while we've got some of our therapists doing some functional tests on your kiddos that they've probably never experienced before. We're also going to have a live stream that we're going to start on all of our social media channels as well with Dr. Graebe. If you want to get a little bit more nuggets of his wisdom or hear some more analogies sprinkled throughout your week on Mondays and Thursdays. So follow us on social media.
And I understand they can ask questions on that too if they want.
Yeah.
One specific for theirs. Like we can do that. We want to.
Yeah.
We want to be
we
there.
can engage with you there.
Yeah, we want to be. I don't want to just tell you, oh, here's what I think is important. I want to
Correct.
basically say, what are you interested in knowing?
Correct.
And that's the same with that June 13th. It's the same thing. I'm going to be available to give a general short overview. I won't go on as long as today, hopefully for your sake, but it's just to give you a short overview. And then at the end, more or less, say, what is it you're interested in? And we can talk more specifically about your specific needs or your child's needs with that too, so we can kind of cover that as well.
Yeah. I mean, I know as we wrap up, I just want to highlight if there are providers out there that have questions or that are skeptical, or even if we've just like piqued interest, please reach out. Like, we're happy to meet with you, whether it be like at your clinic and we'll bring you some food, or whether it be just over some coffee or just one-on-one, a Zoom call, whatever it may be. Like, we're happy. That's our mission and our goal, is to educate and bring awareness to what we do so that we can better help the patient population. And then also, if you're a parent listening, just a reminder that if your gut is telling you something, it's probably right. So, do you have anything to add?
Well, one thing, what you just said there, if the parents are interested, it's very easy. Just call, schedule an appointment with me, and then, we'll basically in that first, it's an hour appointment. But at that point in time, I will be able to tell you. It's like, oh yeah, you're definitely someone who would benefit from what we do, or not. And if not, I can say, here's some things you can do.
Yeah.
And I also always provide parents with, here's a lot of tools you can use on your own.
Yeah.
In the meantime, even if they need therapy, but we, for whatever reason, have to delay, here's some things you can go home with that day that can be a benefit.
Yeah.
And then also figure out what's the best path forward. Then we kind of go from there.
Right. Well, it's been nice hosting this the Missing Piece podcast. This is Allie. I'm signing off. Thanks, Dr. Graebe.
Yes, I guess
I
I'm
appreciate
signing off too.